Welcome to another episode of Financially Fit Radio. I'm Corey Sickles with Safe Harbor Retirement Group and Wealth Advisors. If you would like more information about today's show, just feel free to reach out to us by giving us a call at 614-760-0670, or you can always visit our website at safeharboroh.com. And while you're on our website, feel free to click on that radio page. You can check out some past shows, as well as subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast, Amazon Music, and Spotify. And you can also visit our YouTube page. You can watch, of course, you can watch our Financially Fit radio show right there, or you can watch some other financial topics as well. You know, we're here to help and guide you to make sure you have the best retirement that you can. And the best way to take advantage of that is to schedule a complimentary, no obligation meeting with me. If you have a financial plan, we can be that second set of eyes and provide a second opinion. And if you don't have one, we'll put one in place for you. Now, today we're going to talk about why it is so important to have a financial plan. So I think it's a great topic. It's the beginning of, it's actually going to be February, but it's pretty much at the beginning of the year. If you don't have one, I think it's going to be a good discussion on what the importance is. But before we kind of dive into that, let me introduce to you my co-host this week and every week, and that's Tony Shore. Tony, how are you doing up there in sunny Minneapolis?
Yeah, actually, it's 53 degrees here right now and sunny, which is unbelievable for this time of year, Corey. I mean, January and February are usually our coldest months. In fact, right now, end of January, beginning of February, usually the coldest time of year in Minnesota.
Yep.
But very unusually warm. There's no snow on the ground here, so we're enjoying it, actually. How about there? How about you?
I actually plan on, going up there and visiting for a weekend with Mike Binger with Great Investments up there, and he's going to take me ice fishing.
Oh,
never
wow.
been.
You've never been ice fishing?
Never have. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of looking. That's going to be like the end of February. So I'm kind of looking forward to just to check that out and see how that actually is.
That's funny. You've never been ice fishing, and I hope to never go ice fishing again. So I'm kind of teasing. My dad is big. Took me every year ice fishing.
I know you're like in a cabin or like a little box or tent there.
Oh yeah. They have. It
depends
on.
So.
I mean, you can have this luxury trailer out on the ice where it's just like you have TV. People have TVs and stuff, or some people are out there with nothing, or they're just a little shack or just a small little shed. But yeah, ice fishing. Usually, I think it's an excuse for people to drink. My dad and I never caught a lot of fish ice fishing, but our producer and editor, Corey, Mitch Heil, who edits and produces the show, he is a big time fisherman in general, but loves to ice fish as well. There's a picture of him online. He caught a really nice size fish ice fishing this year, and he's got a few. So it can be done. He's proved to me that it can be done. And this year you got to be careful in Minnesota so you don't, it's been warm. You don't want to fall through. But
I understand that.
Binger, the president of Grading Investments, I'm surprised he was able to make time for you, Corey, between his appearances on Fox Business News, CNBC. He's a sought-after guy. We've had him as a guest on the radio show. I think that's cool that he's taking you out ice fishing.
Yeah. It'll be a weekend, so I guess he's going to be able to not to be on all those business, business shows.
Oh, yeah. Talking about what the 2024 financial outlook will be. So talking about why you need a financial plan in place, this is a good topic for us, I believe.
Yeah, I think what it allows you to do, first of all, Tony, is really set clear goals. Right? What are you really trying to accomplish? Now, obviously, when you create a financial plan, the end goal is to be able to have the retirement that you want. But there's going to be like a lot of little milestones in between there, depending on when you actually start working with an advisor. It might be, for example, hey, I want to buy a house, or I want to be able to buy a vacation home, for example, or I need to save for education for my kids. Ultimately, we know that you want to have a retirement plan, but you're going to have all those little things that kind of come up in there that have an impact on you being able to retire. You might even want to start a business, for example.
Sure.
And these are all going to be good discussions that you can have with your financial advisor that now can help you create a roadmap on how you're actually going to be able to get there with all the little milestones in between that you want to be able to try to accomplish. And be so I think it's very important, obviously, we always talk about this, if you don't have a plan today, you need to have one tomorrow, right? So, for our listeners and our viewers out there that's watching this, if you don't have a plan today, let's start tomorrow and get you one, because the one nice part about having a plan or a roadmap, you're going to feel more confident because you kind of know where you're going. I mean, who likes
Right.
to get in a car and drive, to XYZ company with no map, right?
Yeah, not me. That's for sure.
You might have a good sense of direction, and you can
Right.
figure that, you might be able to figure it out, but you might be going the long way, right?
Right. Right.
Right. So, I think by having that roadmap, it's going to be able to show you what's the best way, the most optimal way to be able to get from A to B. And that's really what a financial plan is.
Yeah. Yeah, and the importance of having a financial plan in place and working with an advisor like yourself, Corey, cannot be overstated. I think it's so important. And you're right. One of the reasons to have a written financial plan is to make sure your goals are clear. And especially if you're married, have a family, you want to make sure everybody's on board, and especially you and your spouse have that written plan.
That's exactly right. So you're definitely going to have a plan. And then the nice part about it is you're going to meet with an advisor minimum of once a year. And we're going to be able to say, hey, where are you? And then, maybe we have to change a little bit of the direction. And just like anything happens, there's life events. Maybe you inherited money. Maybe a spouse passes. Maybe there's a lot of things that take place within a year that you might have to, change and adapt and kind of move forward. So yes, you have a piece of paper, or you have a plan that you have in place, but we know that it's going to have to be able to change year to year based upon what's happening in your particular life. So I think that's always good. And of course, the first thing you want to be able to do is save. That's the most important part, right? So how can you save? If you're trying to buy a house, try to potentially pay off some of that student loan debt, being able to potentially pay for kids for when they're going to be able to go into college. So there's a lot of things that you might still have to be able to pay for, but the one thing you cannot do is not save for retirement.
Right. Yeah, you have to save, and saving's a big part of this. And make sure you're saving enough. As I always say, save early, save often. Right?
That's exactly right. And really, what you want to try to be able to do, we've talked about on the show before, if you can save anywhere from that 10 to 15% of whatever you're earning per year, that's going to be that's a good number to be able to think about, to try to save. And if obviously the earlier that you start saving, the less you're going to have to save long term compared if you do start late in your 50s or late 50s, and you're trying to retire by 65 or 67. So when you sit down with an advisor, we're going to be able to show you, how to be able to save, what to save that into. And obviously what we want to also do too is we want to make sure that you're managing all your debt efficiently as
Yeah.
well, right?
Yep. Yep.
You're gonna have, obviously, if you're young, you're gonna have a house. Which probably means you have a mortgage. Who knows whether you have student loan debt? Who knows what other type of debt you have? But we want to be able to work with you to make sure that you're managing that debt. Hopefully, the main things that you might have is a car as well as a home. We don't want you to be in a situation when you're racking up credit cards, paying high interest rates and things like that. Then the ultimate goal, Tony, if you can always get there, is when you go into retirement, that house is paid for, which is normally your highest expense in retirement. So that's something you don't have to worry about as you kind of go through your retirement years.
Yeah, and one less thing to worry about regarding your finances in retirement is huge, right? And this is such a big part of what you do. And a lot of people listening might think, well, I have a plan already. I know you need a plan. I've got a plan. I've got a 401k and an IRA, and I talked to somebody about stocks. That's not a retirement income plan, is it? That's not a full financial plan.
No, it's not. I mean, there's a lot of things that's going to go into a financial. We're of course you have the financial part of it, Tony, right?
Sure.
But some of the other things that go with that, when you actually look at, and this is probably, I think, something that everyone should look at is look at your advisor that you're working with today, and are they actually doing what we call a true holistic type of approach, right? We know that risk and allocation and investing is one part. Eventually, income planning comes into it. Are they doing anything for you to help plan for taxes? Not only, not just doing your taxes around tax time, but are they actually helping you out so when you do retire that, you're not going to be paying 100% in taxes on all your withdrawals? Are they working
Yikes.
with you? Yeah. Are they working with you to make sure that you have a, enhanced planning or a legacy plan? Whether you need a trust or whether you need a will. Are they talking to you about long-term care? And obviously, you want to work with someone that also probably has the ability to have Medicare. So when you look at Safe Harbor, what separates us, I think, from a lot of other advisors is we have that holistic approach, and you can come in and talk about all those things when when you come in and into our facility here. So
Yeah.
I think that's something that's pretty strong that we try to do for our clients, because all those things I just talked about are going to come up on an annual basis, or as you kind of go through life.
Yeah, and it is there is a sense of urgency here. If you don't have a financial plan, a written financial plan, if you aren't working with a holistic financial advisor, a fiduciary who's looking at the big picture, you need one now, because the longer you wait or if you put it off, it might not happen, and you might not have what you need when you need it, and it might be costing you a lot of money. There are a lot of costly mistakes you can make. We've talked about those on past shows. Yet another reason why you need to have a financial plan now. And before we go on, Corey, let our listeners out there know how they can get a hold of you. Let's take a quick moment here to let our listeners know how they can set up a consultation with you and your staff there at the firm and get this written plan in place.
Yeah, no problem, Tony. For our listeners and viewers out there, you can always give us a call at 614-760-0670 or visit our website at safeharboroh.com. And again, we're here to help and guide you to put that financial plan in place. All of our meetings are complimentary. There's no financial obligation at all. But I think as you kind of go through the process, it's going to give you a sense of relief, kind of knowing where you are today and what your roadmap going to look like as you kind of try to, navigate towards retirement. And that's what our goal is, to make sure that's going to be the most efficient and most successful way for you to be able to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's so important. So, listeners, again, our listeners out there can call 614-760-0670, or they can check out the website. I know there are contact forms on there. There's a way on the website to set up that consultation. The web address, once again, is safeharboroh.com. That's safeharboroh.com. Now, Corey, we're talking about why our listeners and viewers out there need to have a financial plan. What's next?
The next thing I kind of want to talk about is, as you kind of go through life, you're going to have some financial risks that could pop up. And by having a financial plan in place, one, we can address it. That's probably the biggest part of it. Is also we can modify it as things happen, right? So, obviously one of the first things we're going to want to have you do is have an emergency fund. And I think a lot of people that obviously experienced 2020 and the COVID crisis and everything else, I think they realize that many people did not have an emergency fund. You either maybe lost your job or cut hours back, and all of a sudden it puts you a little bit of in a financial bind. So by having a financial plan, of course, one of the first things we're going to do is to make sure that you do have an emergency fund. The other thing that can happen is what would happen if you or your spouse all of a sudden went on disability, right? How are you going to be able to plan for that? And obviously it could be rough, but I just think it's going to be a lot easier for you to be able to talk to someone like an advisor that's going to be able to help you address that particular situation.
Yeah.
Obviously there could be some other things that could happen. You could have you could lose your job, and how are you going to be able to navigate that? An advisor is going to help you to probably try to do that the most efficient way possible. And obviously, we also want to make sure that you probably have enough insurance, in place as well, right? Depending on
Right.
where you are in in your life, obviously the younger you are, if you're married and possibly if, you have kids, you need to be able to take care of them if something would unexpectedly happen to you. And the way to be able to do that is use life insurance to make sure that they're going to have income, that maybe they're going to be able to pay for college. And, how much insurance should I have? Should it be term insurance? Should it be whole life? Should it, there's a lot of different questions out there, and we're going to be able to put a customized, solution for you that's going to meet you and your family needs. So
Yeah.
that's some of the things that's part of the financial plan that I really don't think people think about.
No, I don't think people are thinking about that either. And that's a big part of the problem here, isn't it? People put these things off or they just don't think about them. And I've been guilty of that. I know, uh, and I've said this and we've talked about it, but you meet with people every day and almost to a person, they all say, man, I wish I would have had this in place a lot sooner. I wish I would have gotten this done sooner because they could have avoided problems and they could have been in a better financial position. So the time is now, it's just like a tree. The best time to plant that tree would have been 20 years ago. The
Sure.
second best time to plant a tree is today. So get it done is the message here, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're exactly right. And the other thing, Tony, is as you go through life, we kind of mentioned them, but as you go through life, there's going to be major life events, right? Whether you're buying that house, but the other part of it is your kids might eventually also get married. So believe me, I have people come in and go, man, I gotta pay for this wedding. What am I going to do? You know what? If you actually been meeting with your advisor, we might already had a plan in place where you could have been saving for that for 2 or 3 or 4 years, so
Yeah.
it doesn't actually hit that day that it does come. We know that if you have for example, if you have a daughter or a son, and whatever percentage you're going to end up paying for, you probably have a good idea of that, and just don't let it wait till the last minute where you have to try to figure out on how you're going to scramble in order to get this money. And hopefully you're not putting on a credit card that's going to even cause more debt, or a home equity loan, or
Right.
so there's other things that I think a lot of people do. And again, it's just the foresight to be able to talk to an advisor. So if we know the situation, we can say, hey, here's what you probably need to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's right, and you wanna avoid the costly mistakes. There are so many aspects to a plan that are so important. I mean, you talk about investments, right? I mean, you need to have growth, right? That's a big part of the plan, but you also need to have, retirement income. Where is that gonna come from? And Social Security is a big part of any financial plan, and having that, knowing what you're gonna need to do there is a big part of it too, isn't it?
It is. All those things kind of go into the financial plan, and ultimately, what we also want to do, again, the earlier that you talk with an advisor, is we want to make sure that you're also saving the right way, Tony, and
Yeah.
and not putting everything into your 401k or 403b, where now when you actually retire, it's coming out and you're paying 100% in taxes on everything. I'm a firm believer. We talked about it on the show before. Create tax-free money and as much as you possibly can, for retirement. Most companies match in a 401k that goes on the traditional side, but yours doesn't have to do that. You can actually put that into that Roth 401k, pay your taxes now, let that grow tax deferred, and when you take it out, it's tax-free. That's the key, tax-free.
Yeah.
So, it's not, in retirement, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And we want to be able to make sure that our clients are doing that in the most efficient possible. And the other side of that is believe me, we're working all the time with clients to do Roth conversions. So if
Yep.
your situation's again, that's part of your financial plan in order to make it tax efficient later on in life, or even for your beneficiaries as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and taxes are a huge part of it. You want to minimize that tax burden, and like you just said, you don't want to leave a burden for your loved ones. And that's why, and that leads us into another part of the plan, which we've talked a lot about on past shows, and that's the enhanced planning, the legacy and estate plan. You need to have that as part of your overall plan. And that's something that you help provide to your clients as well, isn't it, Corey?
Yeah. So, when you do come in and, meet with me, obviously, or meet with us from the financial standpoint, you
Sure.
also access to an attorney, right? So, obviously, everyone should have a minimum of a will, but, does your situation require a will or a trust? We can sit down and recommend what for your situation, which is best, and then you can talk to the attorney to then actually put that in place. So, you need your financial, your healthcare power of attorneys, your living wills. You need all that type of stuff. And here's the nice part about it: all those legal documents, all they do is to make sure that everything goes the way that you want it to go.
Right.
Right.
Yep. Yep. And that's the key. That's the key right there.
And avoid probate. Why pay some other attorney or the state you live in 4 to 5% of your overall, net worth, if you don't do it the right way? All this stuff can go to your beneficiaries, really, with avoiding probate, and I think that's what everyone should, do. I've seen so many mistakes, Tony, with people doing the wrong type of things in order title and houses, and having parents, put their kids' name on it. They don't understand the long-term effects that has on the taxes on the inheritance, things like that. So, there's a lot of things that we can sit down and discuss with you to make sure that you're doing them the right way, but more importantly, the best efficient way from a tax standpoint, for the beneficiaries as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's true too. You want to make sure your beneficiary designations are up to date. All your estate planning documents are in order. And the reason we're talking about all of this, your overall financial plan, is really to give you peace of mind and to allow you to actually meet your goals. And that's what this will help you do, won't it?
It will. I mean, at the end of the day, when you have a financial plan, it's going to make you more disciplined. You're going to try to stick to it. It's a lot easier to do that if you have a plan in place and you're talking to an advisor. But more importantly, you're exactly right. You're going to feel a lot better laying in bed at night, knowing that you have a plan in order to get out of whatever mess you might be in, from a financial standpoint, because you've bounced
Right.
it off of your advisor. But it's just going to be a peace of mind knowing that, hey, one of the most scariest days is when you actually retire.
Yep.
The paycheck stops. Now hopefully you're implementing a plan that you've worked with your advisor on to make sure that everything's going to go the way that you want to.
Yeah.
You don't want to retire and not have a plan. Am I going to run out of money? If I am, when am I going to run out of money?
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of things, right? There's so many things that factor into that with inflation and all this type of stuff. Does your plan have, when we build plans, we have all that. We know if you're going to have an issue potentially with running out of money. We have the ability to work with you now so it doesn't affect you as much 15 or 20 years from now.
Yep. Plan. That's the key. You can never go wrong with a good plan, and especially when it comes to your finances. And there's a lot to it. I mean, there's so many different facets of a financial plan. And I love that you take that holistic approach and look at the whole thing. And I think most people who call themselves, quote, financial planners or financial, a financial expert, they don't look at everything that you do there at your firm and don't work with the specialists to help in all the various areas. And I think it's complicated, but yet you help simplify it. What you're doing is providing a simple plan for
Yeah.
your listeners, and the plan, you do the hard work for our listeners out there. If they want to come in and have this done, it's not that difficult, is it?
No. And here's the way I would look at it, Tony. It doesn't matter what you do.
Right.
Everyone has a plan. If you go on vacation, you have a plan.
Yep.
Right. If you're going to retire, you need to have a plan.
Yep.
So if I'm going to buy a house, I got to have a plan. So everybody has a plan for everything. The only time the plan does not work is when you actually would box Mike Tyson. You would
Yeah.
have a plan until he actually hit you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what Mike Tyson says. Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Well, how can our listeners out there get their plan started?
Well, the easiest way to do that is give us a call at 614-760-0670. Or again, you can always visit our website at safeharboroh.com. All meetings are complimentary. There's no financial obligation. Again, just give us a call or visit our website. We'll be more than happy to, begin that process with you to make sure you have the retirement that you want.
All right. Well, that sounds great, Corey. Thanks so much. Great show. Listeners and viewers, that does it for today's episode of Financially Fit Radio.
Join us next week for another episode of Financially Fit Radio.